we're going to set up and seam an infinity cowl. You will need to have blocked your cowl before this step. Here's what you'll need to complete the process: 2 stitch markers and a darning needle. A quiet space and a chunk of time are also nice to have. Here's what I've done for the setup. I have undone my provisional cast on and I placed those stitches onto circular needles. I removed the stitches from the waste yarn at the end of my work and I've placed them on circular needles. I cut my working yarn and I left a length of 90 inches. That is 4 times the circumference of the cowl, plus a bit of insurance. For this job, I prefer using a longer needle cable, if I have one. This helps to prevent the stitches from slipping off of the needle while I work. Something to keep in mind is that you can use circular needles that are the same size as what you use to knit the project, or you can use something slightly smaller. So for example, here I believe I have US 5s, which is what I used to work the project, and a set of US 4s because that's just what I had on hand. To set up for the twist before seaming the project, working on the cast on end, so this is the cast on end, we're going to slip the first half of the stitches purlwise from one needle to the other. It's helpful if you like to place a stitch marker at the halfway point for your stitches. So for example, here you would count 69 stitches, place a stitch marker so that you can know that you're slipping half of the stitches. I'm going to slip those 69 stitches purlwise from the left needle to the right needle. Right. We are ready to seam our cowl. So what we're going to do is get our needles set up in the right direction. So your working yarn is going to be coming off the stitches that are farthest from you, and then you're going to rotate this needle in the front and just going to get those stitches set up on the cable. Okay, so now your working yarn is coming from the needle farthest from you, and you have a set of needles facing you as well. The 2 needles that we are going to be seaming together are this back needle furthest from you. We're seaming those stitches to the stitches on this needle closest to you. So this needle and this needle are getting seamed together. So we're going to place a stitch marker on the first stitch of your front and the first stitch of your back, and this will help us to get a tidy seam at the end. All right, our seaming needle, the darning needle, is threaded, and we're ready to get going seaming our back needle to our front needle stitches. Since we're doing Kitchener stitch in the round, we won't need to do the setup steps that you might be familiar with from working Kitchener stitch. We can just go right into our seaming. I'm going to try to move these other needle tips out of the way. That's one of the advantages of using a longer cable. You can kind of pull them out and maybe even like tuck them into your work if possible. Okay, so to begin seaming, we're going to go in through the first stitch on the front needle, pull it off of the needle, and there we are, we're already tangled in our other needle. It's a little bit fiddly at the beginning, but it does get better. Okay, so we went in knitwise and pulled off that stitch. Now we are going to go in purlwise to the second stitch and leave that on the needle in the front. Alright. The next step is to go on the back needle. The first stitch we enter purlwise. Just getting a little tangled up with the stitch markers there, but it will get easier when we work away from those. Okay, so in purlwise and slip that off of the needle, and then knitwise into the next stitch on the back needle. I think we're tangled up here again. Okay, so those are the 4 steps of the Kitchener stitch, and I'll repeat them for you once again here. Try to tuck my needles out of the way to make this as smooth as possible. So I kind of repeat these 4 steps to myself over and over while I work, especially with this large number of stitches. It's hard to lose track of where you are. So I kind of say to myself, knit on, knit off is that first step. Purl on. Purl off. Knit on. So I will repeat those 4 steps of knit on, purl off, knit on, and I will repeat those until I have 1 stitch remaining on each of the needles. And then I will come back to you and we will finish up those last 2 stitches for our cowl. Good luck, happy seaming! Now that we have 1 stitch remaining on each needle, we're ready to finish up. Going to go through the first stitch on the front needle as if to knit and slip it off. And now we're going to identify which of the stitch markers was from the front of our work. So that would be here. So we're going to go through that stitch marker as if through the stitch on that stitch marker as if to purl, and then we are going to go we can take that stitch marker off. Okay, so now we're just working on the back needle. Go through the stitch on the back needle as if to purl and slip it off the needle. Okay, and now we're going to go through the stitch that is on the stitch marker knitwise. And then you can remove that stitch marker. Okay, and now we can snug these up a little bit, and we can weave in our ends. We have now a twisted infinity cowl, and you can you can move the twist around to get it to be positioned, you know, where you would like, you know, if you'd rather have your twist in the front like that, or have one of your stripes in the center. It's up to you how you wear it, but enjoy it and happy knitting.